After years and years of struggling to see a light at the end of the tunnel, with one short-lived playoff appearance since 2004, the Timberwolves are actually looking like a team that could sneak their way into the playoffs this year. There's a difference between this year's Timberwolves team and the 2018 Timberwolves team, and it's that the 2018 Timberwolves team was more of a ragtag group of veterans and mercenaries. You had guys like Jimmy Butler, a 22-year-old Andrew Wiggins, and Cat as primary parts of that team, but outside of those guys, you had people like Taj Gibson, Jeff Teague, Jamal Crawford, Nemanja Bjelica, and Derrick Rose, who only got to play 9 games. Not exactly the worst team in the world, but as far as setting yourself up for long-term success and perennial playoff appearances, this was certainly not an ideal situation. Now, fast forward to now, and after an injury-riddled season last year, the Timberwolves look completely retooled and revitalized. While they've still had their ups and downs this year, they certainly have a different demeanor. In this video, I'm going to talk about how they've set themselves up for future success, the biggest changes for them this year, what are they doing differently, why they're a bigger threat for the playoffs than people seem to think. We're going to be covering a lot in this video, so be sure to stick around until the end so that you don't miss anything. Also, hit that subscribe button if you enjoy the video. Let's get right into it. So obviously the first thing that you have to talk about when discussing the Timberwolves is their big three of Karl-Anthony Towns, Anthony Edwards, and D'Angelo Russell. This trio only got to play 24 games together last year. This year, they've already played 25 games together, and we're not even halfway through the regular season yet. Now that they've had time to mesh a little bit, their chemistry is starting to come together and they're playing more and more like a unit. Speaking of playing like a unit, the 5-man lineup of Patrick Beverley, D'Angelo Russell, Anthony Edwards, Jarred Vanderbilt, and Karl-Anthony Towns has a defensive rating of 86.4, which blows any other 5-man lineup in the NBA with over 100 minutes played completely out of the water. Even crazier is that this lineup has an offensive rating of 136.9. They have a top 10 defense in the NBA this year, with a better defensive rating than the Bucks, the Jazz, Philly, the Lakers, and a lot of other teams who were really good defensively last year. But on an individual level, what are they getting out of their main guys? Well, Karl-Anthony Towns is still doing what he usually does, being by far the best shooting big man in the entire NBA. So far, he's shot 42.5% from 3 on 5.5 attempts per game. He's not just shooting great for a big man, he's shooting great for any player. Cat is the only center in the NBA to shoot 40% or higher from 3 on 5 or more 3-point attempts per game. Statistically speaking, he is truly the best shooting big man that we have ever seen. In a video a while back, I talked about the fact that Cat's playmaking is pretty underrated. While it's not as good as it was last year, he still offers some nice secondary playmaking from the center position. He definitely thinks that he's Jokic sometimes and tries to make some crazy whip around passes, but he's still definitely one of the better playmaking bigs in the NBA. Here he has the ball at the top of the key and the Grizzlies decide to double him above the break. Beverley makes the smart cut towards the basket and Cat hits him with the easy find. Here, they're inbounding the ball, and Cat recognizes, as you'll see in a second, that D'Angelo Russell is uncovered in the corner. You can see he immediately calls for the pass and gets the ball to D'Lo for the easy points at the rim because the Hornets were leaving him completely uncovered. It's worth noting that he hasn't been the worst rim protector this year. He's definitely at the very least a neutral on defense, and I'm almost inclined to say that he is a positive defender. At the very least, it's nice to see that that area of his game has developed, and it's also nice to see that, at the very least, the level of team defense around him is covering up any weaknesses that he has. But one of the biggest surprises of this season has been the play from D'Angelo Russell. D'Lo has been a revelation for the Timberwolves, both on offense and on defense. While he's not really even close to an efficient scorer right now, he's been killing it as a playmaker, averaging his second highest number of assists per game in his career with 6.9 per game. He's also doing that while keeping his turnovers in check. Him and Cat have been locked in on the pick and roll and when executing handoffs. Despite D'Lo's scoring struggles this year, he's been a fantastic playmaker and often considered a score-first guard. It's clear that he knows that his role primarily is as a playmaker this year, and he's been executing that role really well. But the biggest shocker of D'Lo's game this year hasn't come on offense. It's come on the defensive end. D'Lo has actually become a really smart on-ball and off-ball defender. Let's look at this play against the Nuggets. Barton has the ball in the corner being guarded by Beverley. Even though Campazzo swings to the opposite corner, D'Lo decides not to follow him, instead staying in the paint to provide help defense. At first, he forces a miss, and then he blocks the shot off of the offensive rebound. But not only has he been great as a help defender, his on-ball defense has been really great as well. Here, he just absolutely swallows up Devontae Graham, and it results in him getting the steal. For a player that's traditionally considered a bad defender, he's been, in my opinion, a really good defender this year. And this leads me to my next point, and that is how important Chris Finch is for Minnesota. Not only has Chris Finch been really good at revitalizing the Timberwolves defense and maximizing the strengths that these guys have, he's also been great for their culture. As a matter of fact, Patrick Beverley said after Minnesota's game against the Clippers that Chris Finch is a coach that he would run through a wall for. It's clear that these guys have bought into the systems and culture that Finch wants to build, and it's showing both on and off the court. But there's one player that I want to talk about that he's getting an absurd amount of value from, and that's Jarred Vanderbilt. Vando is currently having the best year of his very young career so far, and while his scoring still has a ways to go, his defense and rebounding ability are truly incredible. He just knows where to be to get the offensive rebound at all times. He's also such a pesky defender, and he has an absolutely unrivaled motor. He runs almost 1.5 miles on defense every game, according to Second Spectrum. He just does not get tired, and that's so valuable at the end of games when you need active defenders. Jarred Vanderbilt is literally Minnesota's Dennis Rodman. He's not going to be the biggest scoring threat in the world, but he's going to gobble up offensive and defensive rebounds and play stellar defense for you. He's also still only 22, so there's plenty of room for him to grow on offense. In my opinion, he's the perfect power forward next to Cat, and I'm excited to continue seeing his improvement. This team has some really great role players as well, with guys like Patrick Beverley taking on a great leadership role for the team and playing an integral part in that 5-man lineup that has such a good defensive and offensive rating. Naz Reid is showing some flashes of being capable of being a really good backup 4 or 5, and Jaden McDaniels is continuing to improve as a defender. They also have a guy like Jaylen Nowell who has been really good for them this year, and he's gone as far as scoring 29 points to help the Timberwolves get a win over Boston. But you cannot talk about the Timberwolves without talking about one player, and that's Anthony Edwards. To me, Anthony Edwards is going to be what dictates how good this Timberwolves team can be. Their ceiling is as high as he wants to go. The Timberwolves have something truly special in Anthony Edwards, and that's a player that has all the physical gifts in the world to be literally as good as they want to be. He's got the size, he's built like a linebacker, and he has the athleticism that very few players are capable of. He's shooting much better than he was last year, and his scoring is continuing to trend upwards. He has everything at his disposal. He can create his own shot, he can finish, he has good ball handling ability, and he's shown signs of being capable of being a secondary playmaker. He's also been much improved on defense lately, albeit he still has a good amount of room to grow in that department. But the biggest kicker with Edwards, he's still only 20 years old. If he's this good now, think of how good he's going to be over the next 10 years. It doesn't even seem unrealistic to say that he has MVP potential. The big thing for the Wolves is just continuing to build upon success season after season. I have no doubt they're going to make the playoffs this year, barring any major injuries, and they've handled a ton of adversity with injuries, COVID, the Rosas incident, and everything else that they've had to overcome. At this point, they just need to keep putting the pieces back together and trusting in the front office to make smart moves, which may seem like a lot to ask. But I truly do believe that the Wolves are going to be in a very good spot in a few years. Do you think that the Timberwolves will make the playoffs this year? Do you think they can make a run in the playoffs? Be sure to let me know in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one.